Ladies and gentlemen, I have two words for you. Rudolph Valentino. Who was Rudolph Valentino? Back before movies had the luxury of 4D, 3D, and even color, movies were in good old-fashioned black and white. And before the innovation of sound, it was the silent era of Hollywood, and it was glorious. Some of the biggest stars of the silent era were Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Lon Chaney. We'll be getting to him in a future video. But with his compelling, enigmatic, and mesmerizing charm, none of them captivated the public, the ladies in particular, quite like Rudolph Valentino. Born Rodolfo, Alfonso, Raffaello, Pierre, Filibert, Guglielmi di Valentino di Antanguola in Castellaneta, Italy in 1895 to an Italian father and French mother, young Rudy decided that Italy was too small for him, and he came to America in 1913. He worked a number of odd jobs, including dancing with customers at fancy restaurants, but Rudy was destined for one place and one place only: the movies. Most people recognize San Diego's historic Hotel del Coronado from the Marilyn Monroe hit Some Like It Hot. However, before Marilyn was there, Rudy was there in one of his earliest films. He was cast in Eyes of Youth as a villain. This was just enough for a certain screenwriter, June Mathis, to give Rudy what would be his big break: the role of Julio. History was made, and a star was born. Movies didn't need sound. They had Valentino. And how else can I put this? Women loved him. But to truly explain Rudy's unparalleled allure and charisma, I think some of my fellow fans can explain it much better than I can.
I fell in love with Rudolph Valentino after watching him in The Son of the Sheik. I thought he was the most handsomest man I had ever seen. Still do. Truth be told, he was my first love. Valentino was able to convey his thoughts and feelings through his eyes and body language. No spoken words were necessary. And there was a vulnerability about him that elicited compassion. Valentino's star is still radiating brightly, and may it shine for another 90 years or more.
Mr. Rudolph Valentino. This guy could launch 1,000 ships with just his face. His eyes, his smile was just mesmerizing. Rudolph Valentino is the love of my life.
Rudolph Valentino was my all-time idol. Nobody could ever touch that guy. He was like fabulous. Even without speaking, you got the message just through his eyes and his emotions. Rudolph Valentino, you were the first and last movie star. I think they made the name movie star when he died. The song came out called There's a New Star in the Sky. And that was him. Nobody ever came up to that again.
From a historical aspect, women were just starting to come into their own. They could now vote, they could show some leg, and they could publicly express their femininity and sexuality. And Valentino gave them a figure that they could fantasize about and an outlet for this expression.
His unexplained charisma that I have never seen in any other man. Add that on top of his amazing sex appeal that I've also never seen in any other man, and combine that, and in my opinion, there was the perfect man. And my favorite would be his eyes. Definitely his eyes. I've always heard that eyes are the gateway to the soul, and in his eyes you can see what type of person he was. Happy, fun-loving, ornery, life of the party, somebody who I would have loved to have met just once in my lifetime. And there was only one thing that he quoted that I did not agree with, when he said that women were not in love with him. It was merely the canvas on which they paint their dreams, and I have to disagree. Women were in love with him. They still are to this day, including me.
Rudy's marriage to wife number 1, Jean Acker, didn't work out so well, and that's the gentle way to put it. She locked him out of their hotel room on their wedding night at the Hollywood Hotel, which is now long gone, and on that site now stands the Hollywood Highland Complex. Rudy Mural. Camille's art director was a Winifred Hudnett, better known as Natasha Rambova. Rudy fell in love with her. In 1921, Rudy and Natasha lived together right here on Sunset Boulevard. I wish I could tell you that this beautiful building was their home. This building has Rudy written all over it. Alas, no. This was once the home of Rudolph Valentino Productions, but Rudy never lived here. Rather, they shared a bungalow once located right here where this building now stands. Pictures of the Rambova bungalow are scarce. This one is fortunate enough to feature their pet lion Zila. This was no stretch for the animal lover that Rudy was. As for the bungalow, it was later divided into businesses, and in the mid to late 2000s, it sadly met its end. After the success of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, Natasha agreed to marry him, and together they bought a house in Whitley Heights. What is Whitley Heights? Think Beverly Hills before Beverly Hills. A quaint, very historic Mediterranean-style housing tract in the Hollywood Hills. Their home was located right here on Wedgwood Place. Alas, Rudy's home is one of the many that was torn down to make way for the Hollywood freeway. So unfortunately, this brick wall is all that stands to show where Rudy's house used to be. Or is it? According to several websites, the foundation of Rudy's home still stands between this brick wall and the freeway. Now, I draw the line at hiking up the side of the Hollywood freeway, but that's not going to stop me from showing you this. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the foundation of Rudy's Whitley Heights home. A small reminder as the world drives right by of the palace that once stood there and the movie star who called it home. A pet project, the Hooded Falcon, would unfortunately never happen, but Rudy's final and most famous home would be named after it. Without further ado, Falcon Lair. And here we are. And I have to say, this is my first time coming here, and boy is this surreal. This was Rudy's home, the last home he ever lived at. Unfortunately, this would not be Rudy and Natasha's happily ever after. Their marriage had already ended. Seen here with Rudy is his new girlfriend, Pola Nigri, an actress from Poland and fellow horse lover. Visiting Rudy here at Falcon Lair was his brother Alberto. It is well documented, both from writing and living sources, that family was very important to the Valentinos. Also seen here is Rudy's Doberman pinscher, Kabar. Kabar was gifted to Rudy when he was just a puppy, while Rudy was on vacation in Europe. The two were reportedly inseparable, and though Rudy had horses and dogs at Falcon Lair, Kabar was allowed to sleep inside the home with him. To the world, he was movie star Rudolph Valentino. But to Alberto's son Gene, he was simply Uncle Rudy. Though just a young boy, meeting his famous uncle, an idol of the screen, stepping out of a fancy European sports car, giving the boy presents, was an experience, in Gene's own words, he never forgot. Rudy always wanted to have kids, and even though he would not end up having children, he took an immediate liking to his young nephew. He also recalled Rudy playing with model battleships with him at the pond of Falcon Lair. We would be happier pretending the home still stands beyond these gates. Falcon Lair changed hands over the decades, and sadly in 2006, the main house met the same fate as Rudy's Whitley Heights home, and is now nothing more than a foundation. What is it with bulldozing Rudy's homes? My goodness. What remains today is the garage and servants' quarters above, a small remnant of a bygone era. At the bottom of the hill, Rudy's stables for his beloved horses have found new life as a private residence. Wow, that car. That is a beautiful car. This is one of 4 Voisins Rudy owned. This one he brought to LA, and we can all be grateful that he did. The Cobra hood ornament that we see there, the story goes, was a gift to him from his friends Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford. This gorgeous car is a perfect example of the kind of elegant and refined taste that Rudy had that unfortunately a lot of people chose to scrutinize. With his slick back hair, which his male fans imitated, calling themselves Vaselinos, and with his suits, wristwatch, and slave bracelet, Rudy had inadvertently influenced men's fashions. However, not everyone was impressed with Valentino. Some people challenged his masculinity, making disparaging pink powder puff remarks about him. At this point, between losing his second marriage to Natasha, his love, and having his masculinity challenged, Rudy was under a lot of stress. Rudy was in New York to promote his new movie, The Son of the Sheik, and challenging the Chicago Tribune writer who slurred him with the pink powder puff when he collapsed in his hotel room from stomach pains. Rudy was rushed to New York's Polyclinic Hospital. While both of Rudy's parents had already passed away, a visitor he did have was his first wife, Jean Acker, with whom he had recently made amends. The operation was performed and a perforated ulcer was found. The operation was successful. However, without modern-day antibiotics, the doctors and nurses could only helplessly await the inevitable for the 31-year-old. And a second funeral was held at the Church of the Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, right here. And Rudy was finally laid to rest, right here at Hollywood Forever, where he rests in peace, next to June Mathis, the woman that gave him his big break. When Rudy was in the hospital, Alberto boarded the first ship bound for America, but arrived on September 1st, in time only to bury his brother. He never returned to Italy and established himself as an accountant at 20th Century Fox. In his later years, Alberto became a caregiver for his sickly wife. An all-around good man. Rudy's nephew Gene was the Valentino who personally knew Rudy to live in my lifetime. I personally find it ironic that the era that Rudy missed due to his untimely passing, the sound era, is where Gene made his career. Gene Valentino's name can be seen on episodes of Rawhide, Petticoat Junction, and his favorite to work on, The Twilight Zone. Call it animal intuition, but upon Rudy's passing, Kabar knew something was wrong. Reportedly, the night Rudy died, Kabar howled into the night, unable to be silenced. Alberto repeatedly told the dog his master was not coming home. Kabar would lay his head on Alberto and cry. Only 3 years after Rudy's passing, faithful Kabar also passed away. As we all know, it takes two to tango. Spanish actress Beatriz Dominguez was no doubt the envy of women in the 1920s, and even today. Sadly, she would not live to see the success of her famous dance with Rudy. During the filming of her next movie, The White Horseman, she collapsed from a ruptured appendix and was rushed to hospital to tragically pass away from peritonitis. As previously stated, Jean was one of Rudy's few visitors on his deathbed and brought him a pillow she had made for him. She even appeared at least one of Rudy's memorials over the years. She passed away from natural causes in 1978. According to some sources, Natasha locked herself in her room and cried for 3 days straight when Rudy died. She got very into Egyptology and spiritualism after Rudy's passing, and even wrote a book about Rudy. She passed away in 1966 in Pasadena. Her ashes were scattered in Arizona. Paula made quite the dramatic spectacle of Rudy's funeral. From requesting her name written in roses over the top of Rudy's coffin, to fainting twice. Whether this was sincerity or just a dramatic performance, we weren't there. Yet another victim of the coming of sound, Paramount did not renew her contract due to her thick Polish accent. That said, she can be seen in a small role as Madame Habib in the 1960s Haley Mills Disney movie, The Moonspinners.
Are you Madame Habib?
Yes, I am. And who, may I ask, are you?
I'm Nikki Ferris. Please, I must talk to you. It's terribly important.
What do you have to say to me? I never heard of you in my life.
Of all the women who mourned Rudy, one woman in particular became a legend herself. She would leave roses at his grave on the anniversary of his death, and was gone. She became known as the Lady in Black. There have been many ladies in black since, but who was the original? There are many stories and theories about her identity, but the most common version of the truth, Dietra Flamet, whose real name was Princess Orvella Wilson, claimed to have been the original Lady in Black. Her story goes that when she was a child, she was very ill. Rudy visited her and brought her a rose and told her, and she kept her promise to him. A simple promise between Rudy and the young girl had become an iconic spectacle, nearly as iconic as the man himself. Over the years, more ladies in black began turning up and Princess Orvilla's health declined. In response, she lifted her veil and told the world who she was. Princess Orvilla passed away quietly in 1984, found surrounded by newspaper clippings, pictures, everything about Rudy. And now, let's bring everything full circle. But, lest we forget, the famous Lady in Black is one of millions of men and women who adore, to this day, the Sheik, the world's greatest lover, the biggest movie star of silent Hollywood, the one and only Rudolph Valentino.
Oh, Mr. Rudolph Valentino, I know I've got the Rudolph Valentino blues. And when you come upon the screen, oh, you're so romantic, I go frantic at the view.